Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Halal Cartels. In fact, our inaugural episode of 2024. Still writing 2023 on all the checks.
Wow,
Am
he
I right?
froze.
Am I
Yeah.
right?
The year started off with a bang.
As always, it's me, Gabe Pacheco, and I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, the one and only.
Sameer Nazim.
Yeah,
Happy New Year, y'all.
yeah, and on the third mic today, we've got the one and only Freddy G.
So
Hello,
happy to
Freddie.
be here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Great to have you.
Yeah, thrilled to have you on the show. And for guests that don't know, Freddie G, because you don't go to New York comedy shows all the time. If you went to any New York comedy shows, you would know Freddie because he's a ubiquitous character on the scene. One of my fave stand-ups to watch. And
I recently had a cold. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go for
Oh, no,
it.
I recently had a cold and they had to cancel all the shows.
Yeah. You were the super spreader.
Yeah.
You were patient.
No, it's just like they can't do them without me because I'm on every show. So if I'm on every show, then if I'm out, then they can't even do them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, well, New York comedy is taking a hiatus today. Freddie G has a cold, so everyone go home.
Sure,
It was a nasty cold too. Yeah.
A mandatory Sabbath. So, my friends, Sameer, you and I, we haven't had this podcast for like I think three weeks now.
That's right.
Yep. I don't know what you all have been doing in this time, but I was in New Orleans. Yeah, that's where I went to celebrate my birthday and to celebrate Jesus's birth as well. Because that's the best is leave town for Christmas. That's like my thing is, especially if you have a family that wants to celebrate it, just leave town. And that way you won't have to deal with any family nonsense, stress, traveling to get to family dinners. I'm basically Tim Allen. I'm Tim Allen from the movie where he doesn't celebrate Christmas and he just goes on a vacation with his wife.
You just get away from all the things that all the stress that you don't really need or want, but you still get to be like, hey, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, man.
Wait, is that a different Tim Allen movie than the Santa Claus?
I think there's one where, I'm not a huge Tim. I don't know his entire oeuvre. I know it mostly from the trailers. And there's a movie where he decides.
Man can cut a trailer.
Yeah. Also, Tim Allen, felon. For people that didn't know that, Tim Allen, the wholesome family stand-up comedian and star of his own sitcom, went to jail for moving that fish scale, moving that weight in the 70s.
This is 100% true.
He was a cocaine cowboy.
But he also told on the people that he was moving the fish scale for. So he was also always almost about to get killed.
Sure. And you know how we feel about snitches on Halal Cartels.
Snitches get stitches.
That's right. So
hopefully he gets like stitches from Al and not from the guy, not from Tim the Tool Man, because those stitches would be ugly. But Al knew what he was doing.
Big time. It was like mishaps that he got the stitches for. They're like, the cartel was trying to kill him, but they're like, this guy's gonna kill himself.
I like how Tim Allen made the Santa Claus and then apparently a movie that is the exact opposite of the Santa Claus, which is a man completely escapes Christmas in every possible way.
That's right. I like that.
And goes to New Orleans. And now you've made that movie as well.
I am so thrilled that I went to New Orleans for Christmas. My one complaint about the city is literally zero fiber in any of the food that they make down there. It is.
Oh my God.
It is. There's no. You can't get any fresh greens, Freddie. You can't get any fiber. You can't. I asked. I was in the French Quarter, and they're like, "Would you like that fried?" Like that's all they have. Big fat fried oysters, fried shrimps, meats. Nothing. No fruit. Forget a fruit.
Honestly,
Go ahead.
The other thing I thought about with like New Orleans is they have po' boys there.
Oh.
But a po' boy is like literally $18. So it's like, how is this a po' boy? It's just a fucking expensive sandwich.
Oh, po' boy means poor boy. They're always lying to you. Yeah, they're always lying to you.
I mean, the po' boy's pretty big though. It's definitely a foot long thing. So you split it. You split it with a friend.
With
No,
another
like
po' boy.
hungry man is for poor boys, and men who are hungry can afford the po' boys in New Orleans. Yeah, Gabe is a man who was hungry. He had the po' boys.
That's right. Have have either of you been?
Yep.
I've been twice. I do want to say fiber is very important to me as a keto guy. As we say, as a ketogenic American, we need greens. Otherwise, all kinds of problems happen. Keto does not work without the greens. Don't let anyone tell you different.
Sure.
Wait, so Freddy, you still are on this ketogenic diet?
Yeah. It's called NSNG, no sugar, no grains. It is from a personal trainer named Vinny Tortorich, a celebrity personal trainer. He just basically gave the diet away for free. It's not like I'm giving him money or anything. And I heard him on the Adam Carolla show back when I listened to it. And now I'm in a crazy leftist who hates Adam Carolla. But I still eat that same diet because I think the diet, the way of eating, he likes to go to way of eating. Everything has their own words. The way of eating, I think, is based on a lot of truth, and you can feel yourself being less hungry. So I've stayed on it because I can feel it, so I believe in it.
Wow. Yeah, that's hilarious that it was from an Adam Carolla show.
I mean, I think you can pick up nuggets of wisdom from all over the place.
Yeah, and I haven't looked up the guy Vinny. I just assume he doesn't believe COVID's real or some other weird stuff, but I just haven't read his content in like 6 years, so I have no idea. I know what he said about eating is good, and he was not. I did talk to him once, and he's a nice guy. But yeah, I avoided looking up anything he said about COVID or politics or whatever because I don't want to dislike him because I like the stuff he's taught me, like basically for free.
Sure,
you're like I have to give up on this goddamn diet because this guy's a J6er.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like he's got a great diet plan for me. He happens to also be a sovereign citizen and a hardcore libertarian who believes in the invisible hand.
He's probably a libertarian. I would just say, I don't know what Vinny thinks about COVID. I would highly doubt he's ever put a COVID mask on.
Sure. Well, if you're eating right, you don't need to.
That's what he would say, yes. Yeah. You avoid the seed oils and the COVID won't come. I'm sure I've had it 3 times, and I do not eat seed oils.
I honestly think I had COVID. I got tested and everything, but I was sick for 3 weeks straight during December with a dry cough. And every day I woke up and it felt like it was the first day of getting the flu. And then I'd feel better, and then I'd get it again a little bit. So like I canceled all of my holiday plans in New York, and then I flew to New Orleans. And like immediately the climate made me feel like somewhat better. So it was like that was my convalescing vacation. I was like Doc Holliday in Tombstone, going to Arizona to like mitigate the tuberculosis.
I think it was similar to this cold. I think there's just like this weird stuff going around. Like there's a lot going around. Some of it's COVID, some of it's not, and it's really crappy. My wife might end up being sick for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, no lie, that is something. So I've been hearing about this mystery virus that's been going around that people test and they technically don't have COVID, but they feel symptoms of it, like being exhausted, it not going away and lingering for a long time, etc. So I have a feeling that maybe it's just a weird variant that's not getting picked up. But how incredible would that be if there was a entire new plague, and they were like, all right, we're just going to spring this on them. Shit isn't 10 in the first place. Might as well just add a plague to the mix.
For me, it felt a little different than COVID because like COVID makes my brain not work well, and my brain still works pretty well. I have no idea. It could be a variant. I'm not a virologist. I also feel that Gabe really wanted to see his family for Christmas, and then this virus just completely ruined it, and he had to take a wonderful trip to New Orleans.
He's like, look, I can't bring you this virus, but I can bring the people of New Orleans this virus.
Oh yeah.
They're inoculated by a liquor drenched gumbo diet, so they'll be fine. While I was there, though, I have to say that I saw a couple incredible places. You know, one, the history of New Orleans. I think it's important for people to go there, just because you know, in the Northeast, I think we always American history, U.S. history starts with Boston, you know, or New York. But New Orleans is like an equally old, amazing city, and it's like kind of counter programming to the like Protestant landing on Plymouth Rock origin story. And then you also have, like, I think of like the four cool cities to see if you want to see the old US is New Orleans, New York, Boston, and Santa Fe.
Ooh, Santa
Right?
Fe.
Which is another curveball. But Santa Fe is like I drove through Santa Fe on its 300-year anniversary, like 10 years ago, and that makes it older than the U.S.
That's the one of the
was
four I haven't seen. New
Sure.
Orleans. I actually was reading a lot about New Orleans. I've read some books. Yeah, it was the big slave market, and like, yeah, there's a lot of history they don't want us to think about that relates to New Orleans. And then it is an incredible place with a million great things like jazz, etc.
Yeah.
And the food there is incredible, but also it's, you know, that thin veil between our world and the netherworld. So
Yeah, making things spooky. Sameer is the ghost hunter on the podcast.
Well, no, I mean, I've maybe mentioned this before, but when I was there, we stayed at this house, and it was an Airbnb mansion. And when we got there, it was like really eerie. It was these people from New Jersey who were retired who like bought this house, and then I was haunted that night. Even though I didn't believe in ghosts or any of that stuff, something very bizarre happened to me. And then the next day, they were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You know, like this house is haunted, and we don't advertise it as haunted because then we get annoying ghost hunter people coming here." And I was like, "Hey, thanks. My life is ruined because that was so spooky." And then now it's on like all these top lists of most haunted Airbnbs. It's called the Parks Bowman Mansion, if anyone's listening out there.
And so you actually saw what was it that you saw an apparition? You felt
I was
the
sleeping and I
chill?
felt like somebody was like squeezing my arm, but it was like a
Damn.
vice-like grip, you know? It was like unnatural vice-like grip, and I was like, what the fuck? Who is squeezing my arm? And then I felt like I was being choked at the same time. I was like, what the fuck? And then I woke up screaming, and my wife was like, it sounded like you were gargling. And I was like, that's horrifying because I felt like I was being choked. And then I was just really like freaked out. And then the people in the house told me, before I told them what happened to me, I was like, I had a very weird thing happen to me last night. And they were like, oh, the guy who slept in that room like a few days ago left here horrified and said that he felt like he was being strangled in his sleep. And I was like, wow, the same shit happened to me, you know? So I guess they just have a freak of a ghost in that house that loves to strangle people.
Yeah, terrifying.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
Or they have a really sneaky person who hosts and like does it just enough to keep it up to get on the rankings.
Yeah, they like give you barbiturates, and then you're like, I don't know why I felt so foggy. I felt like I was being strangled.
Like
When
they have
I
an
woke
algorithm. Airbnb has an algorithm. If it's haunted, you can charge like 15% more. So like you got to do the haunting. Yeah, inflation's getting us unless you're haunted.
Exactly.
Well, have you heard about I did real estate for a little while, and you know about the concept of a stigmatized property? A property that's has a stigma is like if someone's murdered in the house, you have to tell the people. Like, I think if it's recent, you know, if there was like a triple homicide or like a double tap assassination, or like an axe murder where like a whole family goes out, you have to tell the people before you rent them that studio apartment that that's what happened.
I like
the
how
prior 10.
stigmatized property is like the PC word for murder house.
Sure.
Yeah.
The slaughter chamber. But the thing is also because some people do believe in ghosts, that is something as well, where you have to tell them if the house is haunted. Like, even though that,
Yes.
in a secular world, that seems preposterous, that would be something that would actually be stigmatized. 15% off. Your house has phantasms.
That's amazing. You're like, look, it's not that bad, so you can have 15% off. Like, who's the judge of how bad it is?
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to try to get some ghosts to come to New York. We need to lower the prices.
I know. Honestly, in Ghostbusters, in the first one, where they're like, the chamber where they're keeping all the ghosts stored explodes and they all get free. I mean, that should have just dropped the rent all over the city for thousands and thousands of people to create affordable housing. In fact, I'm not a fan of the Ghostbusters. Those guys were, by capturing the ghosts, jacking up the rents.
Yeah, they're like, there's no ghosts anymore, so the rent is going back up.
The first 20 minutes of the movie is kind of showing that they're kind of rapey dudes, or at least Bill Murray.
Yeah, he's a flim-flam artist who is using his position as an academic to hit on it in the sleaziest ways, hit on his hot students.
And then he's like, okay, there's actually ghosts, and now I'll bust them. But yeah, before he was just trying to bust.
That's well,
he wasn't busting ghosts. He was busting. Oh man,
the wildest scene though is when Dan Aykroyd is in bed sleeping, and he had a similar experience to you, Sameer, but instead of having a vice-like grip on his throat or his arm, he gets a blowjob from the floating phantasm woman.
Yeah.
And if you watch that movie as an 8-year-old with your parents, that's a mad uncomfortable scene.
Yeah, you're like, I'm 8. What is going on here? Also, why is this only PG? 1980s movies were PG, and they're like, all right, you can have like a blowjob in a PG movie. Be real.
The studio was like, kids are going to love this movie. We're going to make a cartoon show. I was younger than Gabe, so I was watching the cartoon show. It has to be PG. I don't care how many blowjobs it has. And then people just did coke and let it go.
Exactly. 1980s was a wild time, though. 1980s morality is back, though. I'll tell you that much.
Sure. We're you mean we're going hard right in all aspects of our lives. So I gotta say, I'm so happy. One reason that I got Freddy on the show, that we invited you on, is because you reached out to me earlier. I think it was in October, about going to protests. And Sameer and I had been going to like all of these. We went to the ceasefire protest to free Palestine in Bay Ridge, and then we went to the one in. We bumped into each other at the one by that place where the Nets play.
Oh, Barclays.
That's right. And then Freddie, you reached out and you wanted to go to a protest.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I feel like I have the I feel like I have the honor of taking you your first protest.
It meant a lot. Yeah, it meant, yeah. Well, basically, because you hear that, like, if you go to a protest, it's going to be like the Black Lives Matter ones in 2020, which I should have gone to but didn't go to. And, like, you're going to end up arrested. And, like, they're going to use your face to unlock your phone. And it's very scary. And then I'm on medicine. And, like, I would just need to prepare a certain way if it was going to be like that. I'm not saying it's never like that, but yeah, you need to prepare a certain way.
I like this, like, I'm on medicine, so you can't go. I got a doctor's note not to go to a protest. I've got a prescription.
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous if you get arrested and then you get separated from your medicine, because they would.
I bring my medicine. I'm just always ready for another 9/11. So I have 2 days of medicine with me at all times. It's not even that. I'd be okay with that, but just in case. Yeah, if you're on medicine, just bring a couple days with you.
Oh, I guess
Just put it in your bag.
Yeah.
2 days is a lot. I'm not sure about if you get arrested, but I mean, because even if a 9/11, I'd probably get more medicine in a couple days if I'm just in New York. I'd probably get home or something. Go to the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because they just shut down the trains, you think?
Just in some nightmare scenario, you'll be glad you had your medicine with you for a day
Fair
or
enough.
two. Travel, I bring more than that.
Oh,
But,
yeah, for sure.
of extra day. Like if I'm going away, I'll bring like 4 days. Or like if I'm going overseas, maybe like a week. Like extra added to the days that I'm going to be away.
100%.
Sure.
It's
Well,
like me with underwear. When I'm packing, I'm like, maybe a couple extra pairs. You never know what happens. I'm going overseas.
That's right. I'm gonna eat for me, it's just I'm gonna eat an all gumbo diet in New Orleans. I need to pack twice as many.
It's weird if you're going away for a comedy gig and it's like I only have one pair of pants. It's like I could definitely fuck up these pair of pants in a million ways on the car ride up there. Should I have another pair of pants? But then that's a lot of packing for like a day or two.
Yeah, I agree. But it's always worth it because, like, if you have, like, say, a powdered donut or toothpaste stain on, like, your pants, everyone's going to think that you, like, busted on your pants. And so, what are you going to do? Be like, hey, I know there's a stain on my pants. I didn't bust. It's toothpaste or powdered donut. The usual suspects, you know?
Sure, those
I'm
are
not
the
a
only
buster, I'm a
things.
ghostbuster.
A ghostbuster is someone who had a vasectomy.
If I bust, I'm a ghostbuster because I'm the color of a ghost. So.
Yeah.
Well, so you were I totally get that. I had a joke earlier that I was nervous about going to protest during BLM because I get low blood sugar and like you don't want me on the front lines of your movement because like if they start chanting like what do we want? I'll be like a Cliff Bar. Like when did we want it? 30 minutes ago. And so like I get nervous about being out there, but I never thought that it would be violent, you know? And just wondering like I know when we talked you thought that it might be like that. But even during like the BLM protests, I was just it felt like vibes. Like everywhere I went, I ran into people I knew. And I'd say like 95% of the people at every protest I've ever been to have been like friendly. Like the media, it's the media that portrays only shows like that 1% of violence.
Yeah, I just don't come from protest going people. I come from like of centrists and also Jews who probably support Zionism or at least avoid the subject.
So
I will say my blood sugar did get low at that protest, and then you wanted to go. Your blood sugar got low too. We went out for salad afterwards. The blood sugar low thing did happen to me at that particular protest.
Yeah,
Which is wild to catch you off guard, considering you're on the no sugar, no grain diet.
Oh well, you still have blood sugar. Yeah. I hadn't had my salad yet. I usually have I have my eggs with vegetables and then my salad, and then I'm good. You get where you don't really need to eat that much. You're not that hungry if you like stick to it for a bit.
I love that. Wait, so back to it though. So you know, a little bit of background on you. Like you grew up going to a was it a Jewish country day school?
Yeah, so it's weird. Country. Oh. I mean, it was in the city though.
Yes.
Oh, a Jewish day school. Yeah, we don't say
school.
country because if it's on Casino Boulevard in Queens, you don't say country. Yeah, you're not. Yeah. So my family's not that religious, and we don't have anyone in Israel or anyone that. It's a lot of assimilated Jews. My dad, the public school I was zoned for, my dad didn't think was that good, and he was like, "Well, he'll go here. He'll be proud to be Jewish." And they sent me to a conservative day school. I don't think they knew what conservative Judaism was, but it's the Jews who they follow a lot of the rules in like a practical way, and they're very judgy about it. And also that's a group that tends to be pretty Zionist. Conservatives and modern Orthodox are probably the two most Zionist groups of Jews, like as uniform. So the school was just very pro-Zionist. We would do the Israeli national anthem every day. So I still know it.
Wow.
When
Wow.
you're
And
at
then-
perfect attendance, sorry, one more thing. When you're at perfect attendance, and then they said you have to go to the Salute to Israel parade as part of it, and I didn't go, so they didn't give me my perfect attendance award. And every other year I got sick and didn't get it, so it's really a black mark on my life.
So did you ever have any like doubts about it or any thoughts about it when you were younger? Like, hey, what is this? Like, really?
I guess as a kid, not really. I doubted the religion a lot. See, the thing with Judaism is there's like a lot of parts to it. There's the religion, there's the culture, there's Zionism, and Israel and all that. And then also there's the ethnicity. So the ethnicity I'm definitely part of, because I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. I look very Jewy, as you would say. I look like an Ashkenazi Jew. So that part I'm still part of, but I never really got into the religion or the culture. But then Israel was like, okay, well, we have a country we can go to, and it's a very nice place to go. I went on birthright, and it's nice. And all you hear is that they're surrounded by Arabs and they want to kill us, kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember.
You're like, who, me? That's kind of tight.
I remember.
You're like, I am on someone's fucking list?
And our
Nice.
history is mostly people wanting to kill us. It is almost the story. Every story until like this founding of Israel is Christians wanting to kill us. Because now I've read a lot of the history, and in the Muslim countries, in general, things were right for the Jews. They'd have to pay a tax, like the Christians had to pay, but they could live peacefully. And the Christian countries were a lot less tolerant. Now I know if a country is fundamentalist of any kind, it can be dangerous for people.
Yeah.
Yo, tell me about your time when you went on Birthright, because I remember I brought up Birthright and I was like, isn't that where American Jewish people just get to hold firearms and sing songs in a cave? And you brought up
I
that
did get to hold a firearm in a cave. Yeah, I do hate this one stereotype. People will assume that birthright is about getting laid, and maybe it's about that, but not all of us get laid. Okay, I don't know what you think about Jews, but we're not all going to get laid on a 10-day trip. Okay, it just doesn't happen for a lot of us. So yeah, they have Israeli soldiers on the bus, and actually, I realized this on another podcast when I was telling the story. They took us to the cemetery where the soldiers' friends were buried, and they started crying, and like. The soldiers were probably really sad, but clearly going to the cemetery was a propaganda thing. And I just realized that like recently. And then we go in the caves, and the caves were great. And he let me hold his gun in the cave. And it's the only time I've ever held a gun. It was like a real cool machine gun. I'm not saying it was an AK-47 or M15, but one of those types I know from video games. And I remember I didn't have my hand on the trigger, but I pointed it at the girl behind me. And I thought I was being like so funny, even though in hindsight, like that's kind of a mean thing to do. But again, my hand wasn't on the trigger. I wasn't threatening her. But I remember just like it was like, oh, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened. It was nothing really that cool. It happened to me when I was 21.
That's incredible, though. You're like, I could kill you right now. I won't, but.
Oh, yeah. I just thought silly prank, hands not on the trigger, because I assume a gun can't go off if your hand's not on the trigger. And I've only had one attempt, and it didn't. Because the thing is, they actually probably have to be pretty safe. I bet the gun wasn't really loaded, because if the gun goes off and kills like 3 kids, that would have destroyed Birthright, and Birthright is super important. So when you're on Birthright, I was like, maybe there's danger, there are bus bombings, whatever, bus bombings have happened around then. It's around the time of the second Intifada. But I was like, they're not going to let us die in Birthright because that would really screw things up for them. So they definitely know how to keep Birthrighters safe. And no Birthrighters, I don't believe, have been hurt by anything in the 20 years since. That was about 20 years ago.
They'd be like, that gun was definitely the spirit of Hamas fired that gun.
Oh, yeah, I almost joined Hamas that day.
You're like, Freddy G came to Birthright, turned it into Deathright.
Wow. So how long were you there when you visited Israel?
It's a 10-day trip.
Yeah.
Birthright's 10 days, which is nice, but our trip was poorly organized, so it was kind of miserable. But I had some good times there.
You're like, the cave was a highlight. The rest of the time, not so much.
It made me want to go to like the desert. The desert's really nice. Jerusalem was really boring. And I remember getting bored at the third time we went to the Western Wall and just writing "There is no God" and sticking it in the little cracks on the wall.
Does anyone ever like peep in there and go like, "What did someone write?" Or are they like, secrets that she'll be like lodged in the wall forever.
It is weird if they're secrets because it's a very surveillance culture. So they're probably like looking for messages from Hamas or whatever in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was like right above there looking like down essentially at Al-Aqsa Mosque, but I was like wondering what it would be like. Like, what would I put in the crack there? What if I put like some weed and like a cigarette? And I was like, this is for like my ancestors or something.
I wonder if weed's. I don't even know if weed's legal there. The one thing with it is there is a religious. The country's not that religious, but when you're at the mosque, they're like it functions as an Orthodox temple, so men and women are separated at the Western Wall, which would kind of
Yep.
stink if you went there as a couple. You got to be separated because 90s.
But you're there to like you roll up to the wall, right? And then you are like put in like a note and stuff.
Yeah, but you're separated by gender though, even though 90+% of Jews wouldn't be into that. I understand that. I know that's how. Is that how all mosques are? Are they separated by gender?
Yeah.
In Judaism, it's only an Orthodox
except
thing.
for like the Grand Mosque where like the Kaaba is in Mecca. Men and women are like not separated there, which is insane because that's the most holy place. That's like, why are they separated elsewhere?
That's amazing. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Okay,
And
I'd love
also
to go there.
women aren't allowed to like cover their face there, which is like hilarious to me because all these fundamentalists like want their wives to cover their face or something. But if you're there, you're not allowed to. So they'll still make them do it, and they'll be like, I'll make up for it somehow by like donating to the poor or something.
Oh man.
Yeah. It's like how you discover that fundamentalism is a lot of like made up traditions that are basically rooted in like old Bedouin and like Bedouin traditions of basically hiding women and stuff and treating them like property.
So, since you have both been there, what is the geography of this? Right. So the mosque functions, Al-Aqsa Mosque functions as a Muslim holy place in Islam, but then also, where's the Wailing Wall? Is that like
It's right there. It's right below. It's right at the Temple Mount.
We seem to call. I always called it the Dome of the Rock Mosque. Is that the same thing? Is that just our stupid name for it? You call it
Yeah,
Al-Aqsa?
no, it's the Dome of the Rock.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, it's right. Yeah, and then when you're in Jewish school, they're like, well, we would look for Solomon's temple because they've never found archaeological evidence of the greatest Jewish temple ever. But then the Muslims built a mosque on top of it. In the 2,000 years they lived there or whatever.
And then there's like in Hebron, for example, there's like a mosque that is adjoined by a synagogue, and you can look into the synagogue and look into the mosque through windows. And there's a graveyard, a small like grave area in between, and it's like for like Abraham's wife or something.
Yeah, they all were buried. Yeah, we called it Merat HaMachpelah. Yeah, all the key couples in the Jewish Bible. But now I've been reading more books on stuff, and it's like none of those people are real. Yeah, Moses. Like I get jealous of Muslims because like Muhammad's a real person, but Moses isn't. King David probably isn't. There's no evidence of King David. There's like a plaque that says House of David, but that doesn't mean there was a real person named David. Like Rome was named after Romulus. That's not a real person.
Muslims believe it. So Moses is the most mentioned prophet in the Quran. He's mentioned like the most out of any prophets, and like Muslims believe that he was a real guy though, and that he did like all of those things, like the parting of the Red Sea, and was like floated down the Nile River, and like confronted the Pharaoh and stuff.
Oh yeah.
God.
There's like when I was reading about Jesus, and like there's like one of the Gospels about Jesus is the one the Muslims had when like he was writing the Quran. So then they just like take everything in there as truth, even though like it's contradicted by other Gospels that they probably just didn't have.
Right.
Yeah, we had Christianity has a bunch of Gnostic Gospels. So like there's the 4 that are in the New Testament, and then a bunch of letters, like Paul's letters and all that. But there are other books of the Bible or other texts that would have been pro
Can I
Jesus
Christian
text.
explain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're called the Synoptic Gospels. Gnostic is this other weirder thing.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. Please.
Synoptic, like
Christian
they summarize Jesus' life. Yeah, Gnosticism's a whole other thing. It's way too boring to explain. But yeah, it's religion for very depressed people. It's the most depressed people would be Gnostic. If you're depressed
so
and need to find God, look into it.
Yeah.
Really?
There's just
It's basically like this world was created by the devil. The good world is created by God, and that's coming back or something.
So yeah, there were just a bunch of failed books that didn't get a second printing. You know, that the alternate Bibles stories. You know, there might be like a
entire
gospel.
printing, all the printing of books for like 1,000 years was just monks handwriting books. So like the Christian Bible that we have is the book that the monks and the Pope and the priests wanted us to have. Because without them copying it, if they just got lazy and stopped copying one book, we wouldn't have it.
So a bunch of monks were like John Lovitz and the Critic, and they're like hated it, and then they just stopped reprinting those scrolls.
That would be incredible.
Wait, this is the dorkiest thing. This is the dorkiest thing. My wife and I bought a board game where you get to pretend to be the monks.
No.
We were very excited. It's a lot of fun. That's how dorky me and my wife are. Yeah, you get to be those monks. Yeah, and then the printing press came and just destroyed them.
Yeah,
that was like
they all
like
got
Martin Luther.
downsides.
Like Martin Luther wasn't better than anyone else, but he was just the guy who like criticized the church right after the printing press was born, and then his letter went viral, and then on the printing press, and that's how he became who he was. If he was born 100 years earlier, his body would have been burned, and no trace would have been left.
It's amazing. He's like, you know what? I have something to say, and I'm going to use this brand new machine thingy to say that shit. And then everyone got a copy of it and was like, yeah, this is fire.
Yeah. Because this guy, Jan Hus, they just burned the hell out of him. They were like, fuck you. And that's it. You burned him. It was over. They burned his papers. It was just done. He's burned. Yeah.
It's like
they used his papers to start the fire.
Yeah.
It's like the printing press was like MySpace, and Martin Luther was like Dane Cook, and he he was the comedian of the printing press, the first guy to adopt the new social media.
Big dumb.
Yeah,
literally.
The Matt Rife of the Reformation.
He was the Rob Delaney.
The thing he wrote was the most boring message board post. Like, it was just like, here's the logical reason why the Pope is like breaking the rules. And like, he didn't think anyone would want to read it. And then just people started printing it, and then they got excited.
Do you think he enjoyed some sort of like celebrity? Like, because of that, they're like, oh shit, here comes Martin Luther. That's my man. And he would like come through it. And you would like sign autographs and everything.
The number one thing about
Martin Luther, God, I hate that guy.
The number one thing about Martin Luther is he sold out. Okay, what he does is there's a peasants' revolt, and he's like, well, actually, and like because peasants were treated like shit, and then he's like, well, I actually like the princes. They're always right. You guys should just like submit to them. And he just bootlicked, and that's why like he isn't cool. And Protestantism is like the worst stuff because they just always suck up to like the nationalism.
It's like well, I always found that whatever the merchant class, this is my impression, is that new religions latch on to the new money class.
Yeah.
So like whoever, you've got a king and he's got a god, or like an aristocracy and they've got a god, and then a new belief system comes out, and the merchant class, that's the new money, latches onto that belief system, and it spreads through that new class. And with Martin Luther, like he did half step because he wasn't really there for the people. Like he was defended by forces with money that were against the Pope and the Holy Roman Empire. So like just another moneyed class.
So our new religious guy is Donald Trump, and his biggest supporters are the merchant class, which is the car dealership owners. Car dealership owners love him, and car dealerships don't need to exist. You could buy cars online, but they get laws passed to make that impossible. I've heard about that. So yeah, that's our new example.
Exactly. Well, I'd say so. Like when you look at January 6th, a lot of the people that were at the insurrection are professionals. They're like
Yeah, you
upper middle
couldn't get a
class.
car that day. All the car dealership guys were there. The whole dealership just emptied out and took a bus.
Yeah.
They really shouldn't have carpooled, saving the environment, but took a buses to get to the Capitol.
Yeah, it's the revolt of the small business owners. So, Freddie, you read something else you told me once is like you read books at 1.5. I read books at 1.5 speed.
So
But
I
you're
started
like
doing audiobooks.
Dr.
I
Manhattan
stopped all
over
my
here.
sports podcasts. So I've read so many audiobooks, I'm become insanely annoying. And reading the 100-Year War in Palestine is what got me in 2021 to start posting about it. So I happened to read it, and that right around when there was that war in May 2021. And I had posted about it then, but then obviously posting about it after October 7th has been a whole other deal. And I've been called, yeah. But yeah, so I read audiobooks and I increase the speed, and I can get up to like 3.5 speed. So if you read for 6 hours a day at 3.5 speed, that's like 20 hours a day. So you're reading a long book every day or 2 short books.
Yeah, and how did this like growing up in this background, right? A school that was pretty much pro-Israel, pro the Zionist cause. Why aren't you a hardcore Zionist? What were like moments that changed your especially because you say you've got friends and family that are still like believing this. What changed for you?
I think just reading books, first of all, becoming an atheist. So then I was skeptical of the religion, and then once you become skeptical of religion, and I know the people who market themselves as atheists are usually like the most annoying people. But once you get skeptical of religion, you find religion in other places. So then it's like reading Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration, helped me because that made me see that the system could be rigged, where they could just like basically make drugs a crime and then just arrest, and a crime that everyone does, and then arrest whatever type of people they wanted to enforce that crime that everyone's doing. That helped me. And then Trump happening, and then I became more like Democrat. I was like Pod Save America and all that stuff. And then I realized, like, when Biden came in, like, they don't care about any of that, man. They're just going to keep trying to get Democrats elected, and they're not going to stand by their principles and stand against corruption. Here's a really good book no one talks about, maybe much more of a leftist. It's called Crisis of Conscience by Tom Mueller. It's about whistleblowers. And it talks kind of about how whistleblowing is tough as people are moving between industries, between government, private media, and getting paid to do it. And there's a whole kind of thing of everyone kind of working together just to kind of play ball. And like, it shows how the system's corrupt. And that actually made me skeptical of like Democrats and Obama and all that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I like everything you're saying. This is like, but it makes me feel like this is being critical of our country, or like whatever, critical of domestic policies, more than our international policies. Because I agree with everything you're saying, though. Like growing up in DC, I know everyone who was a federal government employee, the minute that they retired, they ended up working as a consultant for like Boeing or Raytheon, or getting
That's why.
like a part-time gig at the Pentagon. And so there's this like, well, or if your job is working for the government to regulate like climate, so, like pollution, and then right after that you go and become a consultant for Exxon. It's like,
exactly. Yeah.
And that's how it goes, though.
Yeah.
What I'm realizing is that, like, the dollar is what people worship, and that money is corrupted so much in politics and so much in our country. But internationally speaking, it's the same thing. Like, the more you open your eyes to it, the more I feel like I'm drowning, I can't understand how to get out of it.
My wife also helped me deprogram from like chasing money, because like she's a union stage manager, and she pursues a career in the arts because she's passionate about it. She does make a living doing it, but she doesn't try to make the most money in her life. I also just think reading books by David Graeber really helped me. He's a leftist anarchist who died in in either 2020, 2021. I read the Democracy Project first. That really it helped me understand Occupy Wall Street, what that was about. And then his book called Debt is really good too. And it talks about relationships not based on money and how money is fairly new, and all kinds of things. But it's real good stuff.
What
That's
type
David
of
Graeber.
What
Yeah,
type
David
of
Graeber.
relationships?
Basically everyone in a little village, they would all owe each other a little something. And the women would just go to house, passing things back and forth, and that would maintain the relationships. But basically, okay, you could have a couple trinkets that are yours, but property in general should really be pretty equal. Everyone should have one house before someone else has a second house. Because other than that, otherwise, you're in New York where someone owns a second apartment in New York, and then someone else is freezing in the cold and dying because they can't sleep in that second apartment, and there's no morality behind that.
Yeah, or how about, I think there's over 100,000 vacant apartments in New York City right now, and then you've got people in the streets, and you also have refugees in the streets and being kicked out of the shelters in freezing weather in January.
Yeah, we've commodified too many things. I mean, now I've read a lot. Yeah, the food, water, shelter. There's things that you need to survive, and then we can't commodify those. And that actually brings back to Gaza because, people think oh, genocide. Oh, that's what the Nazis did, death camps, and it's the many genocides happen throughout history, and the simplest way of doing it is just cutting off the food to a large population in a siege. And that's what's happening in Gaza. It's some medieval stuff that doesn't happen as much anymore and is happening right now.
Sure. It's like a slow moving genocide. So it doesn't have the same firework sort of spectacle of a death camp, but the end result is the same, that you're.
I mean, I'd argue that it has both because there's just horrible, vicious, really, really awful things happening every day. I'm that'll be the worst thing I ever see. And then the next day, something even crazier. But yeah, I agree with both of you though. I mean, the element of it right now that's really scary is the starvation and the disease and the cold that's going to get everyone because people are completely ill-equipped without their things that are buried under rubble.
There is the thing, I mean, because back in the 40s, I mean, they had bombing and airplanes and stuff, but if the Nazis had modern, it was reasonably primitive. If the Nazis had modern bombing, maybe they would have just bombed the ghettos instead of send people to the death camps. I mean, who even knows? But yeah, because if you bomb altogether, it has that same effect.
Yeah, I mean, this ICJ ruling is coming up this week, and
What's that?
So there's a whole South Africa filed a genocide convention against Israel, and so they're going to go to the ICJ court,
Pretty
International
wild.
Court of Justice.
Pretty wild when South Africa is the one.
Jess Solomon explains it. Yeah, Jess Solomon explained what it was in the last episode too of this pod. I just listened to it.
Right. Because there's the ICC, which is just how you hold actual individuals accountable, and that's compromised by a guy, Karim Khan, we could do a whole podcast on him, but
Damn.
The ICJ. So I was like, this is hopeful. At least something is happening now. And then my dreams were pretty much dashed by Norman Finkelstein saying that it's just a political thing, and that a bunch of these countries like Germany, Uganda, apparently, and other countries are going to vote no matter what the evidence presented is. And that really broke my heart. So it's almost at this moment, I'm realizing there's a huge glut of individuals who can bring hope to people, into the masses. And I think there's also no adult in the room. It feels like there's no leader who's sane, Joe Biden, obviously an insane person. And it feels like the rest of the international community has people speaking out about this, but they're I don't know, I can't do anything because Grandpa Joe is the one who can stop this. And so I'm trying to find hope, and I thought about it, Freddie, like those books, for example, that you read about, like, capitalism, etc. Like, I feel like those things all present like the reality of what is actually going on, but then there's no other shoe that drops where it's like, okay, so that being said, we're gonna be okay. Like, here's what could be good. Everything's just like taking a seam ripper to like the world and then being like, all right, there
Every
you go,
book,
tatters.
like I read a lot of Chomsky books recently. Hope he doesn't show up in the Epstein report, but it is possible. But either way, he wrote a lot of good stuff that's not about that stuff. But anyhow, I mean, just organize. People organizing and organizing on the left is supposed to be the first step. And I have tried to do a little more. I joined DSA recently because Eric Adams called them Nazis. Yeah, I hate when people. It's like, you're not Jewish. There's a lot of like non-Jews who get money from AIPAC, telling us what anti-Semitism is or who Nazis are, and it's like, let us Jews decide. But yeah, so I joined them at least learning about stuff. Yeah, I'm obviously very new to all this stuff. I went to my first protest only a couple months ago. I've only been to one since, so I'm still trying to learn. But at least knowing the truth has helped me. And I am hopefully working on stuff to help communicate it to people, and also getting more involved in organizing.
I think that's it, right? Is it community? Finding community, organizing, taking a proactive stance is better than just sort of like being like, well, this is fucked. Moving on.
Yeah, look, find a little village, and find your little old ladies and trade baubles with them. That's it. And
one book that gave me hope is,
yeah.
Oh, okay. George Orwell. He wrote a book. His two books are very depressing. You could read those, but they're depressing. He wrote a memoir called Notes on Catalonia. He was in Spain during the Spanish Civil War. And he was there during the height of like when they were doing like anarchism, and it was kind of working. And then he joined. And like, he's just like, I saw this, and like, it wasn't perfect, but like, it made me have hope that like that we can have structures that don't follow the American mold or the Soviet mode. And then the Soviets kind of come in and actually screw it up and help the right-leaning people. But that book kind of gave me a little bit of hope.
Goddamn. That was Orwell, huh?
Yeah, And then what's the other one? Howard Zinn has a book, You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train, about his time teaching during the civil rights thing. A lot of these books, like books about people organizing, like there is a lot of hope. Like Martin Luther King did a lot of great stuff, but the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, they were just some people who organized and kind of set the whole thing up. And I'm sure they felt completely hopeless in 1948 or whatever year they might have started.
Yeah, that's it, dude.
It's the best it's ever been. I mean, we can all drink at the same water fountain right now. You know what I mean? And we all have smartphones. So there's hope, buddy.
Fair enough, yeah.
Wait, can I shout out one more book? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Jewish from New York. So New York, not connected to the South. My family wasn't here during slavery. I got that I had white privilege. I'm not saying I didn't think that. But I read this book, and you got to be dorky for this book, but it's called The Color of Law. And it's about how the New Deal and all these other laws segregated New York with real estate and with unions, and basically created economic opportunities for my grandfathers that a black person or an Asian person's grandfathers didn't have. And that really put a lot in perspective for me. That book, or possibly if you could find a less boring version to read.
Wow.
Yeah,
I need to learn more about the New Deal, because people talk about like how it saved the country, but this country, is a fucking mess. So it's like there had to be some pork in there too,
Oh yeah, it stopped the bleeding, but then the thing that saved the economy was World War II, and then we basically haven't shifted out of a war economy since. Also, the New Deal was just super racist because he needed the Southern Democrats to support it.
Got it.
Yeah, the New Deal was great if you were white. That's basically it.
And they added Jews. Yeah, they added the Jews to the white, possibly, maybe because of what was happening in Germany. He did not do anything to impede the Holocaust, but Jews got added to white, and my grandfathers got to assimilate and make enough money to buy houses and stuff.
And the thing that Freddie's talking about with with financial opportunities and business opportunities that like goes back to redlining and sort of like real estate, carving up the neighborhoods and deciding which neighborhoods white people could live in. And then if they were neighborhoods that were not white, then the property was worth less. And that was like just baked into the system.
Right.
So yeah, man, fun stuff. Everybody should read, or at least read the cliff notes on the Power Broker if you can't listen.
I'm gonna
to
read that one
something
soon. Yeah.
If you can't listen at 3.5 speed, that's like 48 hours of book to read.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna read it in a day. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna just stay up all night and go 20.0 speed and read it in 2 hours.
20.0 speed.
So, Freddie, this episode's going to be called Freddy G's Reading List. And I want to know, man, I love your TikTok, but where would you like people to find you?
At Orange Freddy G on all the platforms. So yeah, I'll get obsessed with stuff, and then I get obsessed reading books about the history of Jesus. And basically, if you believe the historians, he's a crazy person who thought the world was going to end. And then I started writing a show about that, and then I realized I was interested in it because my dad's a crazy person. And then this show became about my dad. Then my dad died, and yeah, so to make the show better, very Jesus of him. And yeah, so I'm working on a one-man show that's going to come out about that. That's going to come out in the spring, hopefully. Still finishing that. So I'm working on stuff that kind of combines all these things. But yeah, you can also just see silly stand-up and clips and jokes and everything, or like stand-up dates at Orange Freddy G on every social media possible.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that play.
Oh, thank you.
Or that one-man show.
Yeah, one man. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for coming back on, or for coming on to Halal Cartels for our first episode back in 2024. You can find me, Gabe Pacheco, on Instagram at GabePack1. And you can also always come on Wednesday nights to Funhouse Comedy at Pete's Candy Store, which is at 10 p.m. And it's always free. And I will be there with my illustrious co-host.
Me, Sameer. You can find me at Sameermon, Sameermon, on all platforms. And yeah, I'm with Gabe Wednesday nights at Pete's Candy Store. So come through.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of Halal Cartels. And now leading us out, here are the smooth sounds of the one and only Serene Patel, a.k.a.
Brown Privilege.
Oh, we can't.